creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. In the unpredictable landscape of business, Nick Thompson's insight reminds us that even in the face of adversity, knowledge is power. And with the right strategies, we can turn challenges into opportunities for success. Nick Thompson, thank you for coming to Shed Talk. It's an honor to have you here. I have known you for over, 30 years?
About that, yeah.
I know we've had some great experiences growing up as an entrepreneur. And here you are, you wrote a book, okay? And the great book is Look Out, You're About to Get Effed. Well, I can't really say the swear words as we're going.
Gotcha.
So what made you actually want to write this book?
Yeah. So I've been through a number of different pitfalls of business over the years. I've started, scaled, exited a number of different businesses over those time we've known each other. Mm-hmm. And you've been involved in a lot of those ups and downs and valleys and mountains. And what I realized after exiting my last company on very tumultuous terms is there's so many great business books out by so many business thought leaders of our time, Jim Collins, and there's many of them. And I have an extensive library of all of them. I like to study them. I like to try and implement all of these best practices. But what I realized was they're all do this, do that. Here's some stories. Here are best practices. Here's a new way of building a culture or a new way of developing your business. And there's no business that says, here's all the crap that can happen and really hurt you.
So a question about all this crap that can happen and it hurts you. Is it more of the, I look at it like this, isn't it better to go through the experience than somebody to tell me how to do it? Especially as an entrepreneur. Here we are as entrepreneurs, and we're both entrepreneurs. We're building a business. The book's awesome. But when you're telling somebody to do something, don't they have to go through that themselves?
Well, experience is the best teacher.
Yes.
For sure. And I've experienced all of these things, and I've also gathered stories from hundreds of other entrepreneurs that have experienced similar. But sometimes if you just get a little knock on the head when you're going through an experience and you're saying, wait a minute, I happen to know I'm hearing that if I keep going down this path, it might lead to a big pitfall into a lot of pain. So maybe that little knock to say, I read this, and maybe I'll just change my direction because of it. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, we learn from our experiences, but it's a lot cheaper to learn from other people's experiences.
That is true. Okay, so from your experiences as a startup, as a entrepreneur, your first entrepreneur. So what was your first job?
First job ever?
Yeah, your first job ever.
Working in a garden center when I was 13.
So after that, any pitfalls during that time?
Well, for sure. First job, you're trying to deal with what does customer service look like? I have no idea.
So you start your second job.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, which is what part is that?
I was working on a horse ranch, actually taking care of horses. Yeah.
And then where does getting into the media side of it
when I got into media marketing, that came later. I was running ski schools across North America. I was working at ski hills, and my parents, my dad worked for the Calgary Olympics, and when he finished that and retired, he said, I want to look for a small company to purchase. So he asked my brother and I to come join him. And I took ski resort operations and also marketing and hotel restaurants. So I was sort of more interested in business, and my brother's in the arts. So he said, no, I do not want to go into business. I am all about the arts. So I joined my parents, and we looked for a company together, and we looked at hundreds of companies, and we came across this really small promotional marketing company. It had about 5 people working in it. And I said, I'm interested in this. My dad was interested in it. So they funded it, and I was their retirement plan. So they owned it for 4 years and then said, okay, we're ready to retire. And then I bought them out and kept with it for another 25.
So a question I have for you. So when your parents and you guys are looking for actually a business together, do you find a lot of companies or a lot of parents do that?
No.
They don't?
Most people that have generational ownership, the parents or the grandparents have started something somewhere and then grown it, and then they're looking at succession, right? Mm-hmm. So if they're looking at succession, they're like, I can sell it, or I can have a family member that maybe buys it and it gets generational that way. Not very often have I seen where, generations go out and say, hey, let's look at purchasing a company together. Mm-hmm. And that had its own pitfalls, right? Because we actually hadn't worked together until it was like we bought the company, it's running now, and we're now interjected into this company. So my dad assumes role of owner and president, and I went straight to the warehouse and started right from the bottom, right? Because I was pretty young. I was in my 20s. So
he basically just gave you a job. So it wasn't that you guys weren't going in together. He says, okay, no, I'm going to do this business, but I'm going to bring you on. Here's the carrot. Let me put out a carrot, and here you go, and you can eventually own it. What does that carrot look like? You got to work your way up.
Right. You got to prove yourself, because as the son of the owner, you have to prove yourself more than anybody else here, mm-hmm, to everybody. And so I just worked my butt off and worked my way up. So only 4 years, but worked out really well.
But what's interesting now think about it. Here you are, 25 years old. Well, actually, you're a little more than 25 right now.
Yeah,
now with kids. And then all of a sudden you look back when you were young.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, what does that look like, the transition between the two? Remembering that you're going in there, you're going to work for your dad in a family business that you guys just created. Mm-hmm. It's the only job. Now, fast forward to today. And as an entrepreneur, now you have all of this years of experience, just like your dad did, mm-hmm, with lots of years of experience. How do you take that experience and give it now, because you've gone through it, to your kids?
Yeah. And so I'm going to tell you, I made a fatal mistake raising my kids. Mm-hmm. And I learned this fatal mistake probably 5 years ago when I read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. And in that book, she talks about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And how do you help people understand and learn what a growth mindset is, so you can learn and grow and teach them how to continue to, on their own path towards success. And in the book, she's talking about how you do that with employees. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get that. That's what we've sort of discovered. How do you do that as a teacher with students? Okay, I get that. And then it was, how do you do that as a parent with kids? And the fatal mistake I made was, she says in the book, you as a parent, you want to praise your kids, right? That's positive.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And when you praise your kids for, say, getting good grades, and you say, oh, you're so smart. You're so smart. You got great grades. She goes in length about how that's detrimental to their growth mindset. And instead, it should be, you worked so hard to get those grades, and I'm so proud of you for the hard work you did.
Right.
So I was always, you're so smart. You're so smart. You're doing so well. But we don't realize as parents, we're actually teaching kids, if they fail down the road, then they're not so smart.
So is this like a participation medal? So here we go back in the day that everybody had a back in the day, let's talk about this of my age, you're there to win, and here you get a trophy, and here you go. Now fast forward to where we are today, and then all of a sudden, well, here's a participation moment. Everybody needs to be treated the same. The woke, what I call is the woke crowd, and then how that's come to be today. So one of your greatest challenges, you just said, was the kids.
Yeah. So I believed I made a fatal error with my kids, and I believe nowadays we're teaching people to have a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset, because we're telling people that they don't need to try. And a growth mindset is about how hard you work and how hard you learn and how hard you think, and you have some critical thinking about you, rather than this is just the way it is. That's a fixed mindset.
Right. Now, how do you put that into business? So here's that is. Sure. How do you introduce that to business where someone's been brought up this way as an entrepreneur, as a business owner?
Yeah.
How do you switch that mindset?
So, and I write about this in the book. It's called Psychological Safety. Mm-hmm. And it's about helping people feel safe enough that they can take some autonomy of their own work, their own positions and their own roles. And it's getting them involved. So getting people involved, getting them to be able to make their own decisions within their realm of their role, without somebody micromanaging them and saying, no, don't do that, or yes, do that. So a certain amount of autonomy and giving them some freedom to actually grow their role, because people working in their roles, they know how to do it best. And so if they know that they have some freedom to say, I think I know a better way of doing it, and there's some guidelines around that, they can actually grow that role. And then they're more engaged, and they have what we call psychological safety to psychological ownership. So they feel like they own their role, they own their position, rather than they're just being puppeteered.
Right. Can you give me an example, like a storytelling of that example? Because I want to dig down deeper into that and the things we know that we don't know. And really, storytell that for me. I'm curious.
Sure. I'll give you so the basic example is we'll take someone at front reception. Okay, so he or she is at front reception, and they have to answer the phone. So a job description says, answer the phone. Right? That's your job description. In what we do is set up what we call a performance description. We have them work with the reception to build their own performance description. And that is, answer the phone by the third ring, because otherwise it goes through to voicemail. And the reason we want to do that is because we believe that everybody that calls in should talk to a live person. So it's not answer the phone, it's now extrapolated out into a measurement and a reason why. And so we help them build it so that it becomes theirs. And then we say, okay, now it's yours to improve.
Interesting. One of the things I ran into was interesting because you just mentioned reception. And I was out the other day over at a fitness place. And I said, so how's business going? They're going, oh, business is great and all that and a bag of chips. And then business is great. And I always get into that and ask them questions. And one of the things is so your new people that are answering, the receptionist answering the phone, she says, you know what's really interesting that I didn't know is that if you look at this generation, they all have cell phones. Kids have their cell phones. They know everybody on their cell phone. So when they pick up the phone, hey, Susie, how you doing? Everything's great. When they actually pick up a phone that is actually a phone for a business, they have no idea how to answer the phone. What does that phone call look like? They don't know how to talk to people. And it's one of those things that it's led that you actually have to go to the bottom line basics of how to actually say hello. What does it take instead of, yeah, gotcha. Right. And it was such a unique story. It was like, okay, how do you train your culture, young people coming in there? And they are so different than what we grew up with. And you're training and monitoring each individual. Like, right. How does that work?
Yeah. And I think, since I left my marketing company, that was in 2017. And now I do, business coaching, as you know, executive team coaching, as well as have another company with my wife, virtual company. I haven't had to deal with reception, right? And so, that's 6 years, and I've heard the same thing. And you can feel it when you're on a phone with somebody and the way they answer their phone. And so the idea now is it's almost like a retraining. But it's just going back to basics. And the key, I think, here is just being more engaged with the individuals, to just walk with them, right? Just meet them where they are and walk with them through the process, and talk about how does that feel? It's more of a coaching than a training nowadays.
Yeah, but isn't that going to make me feel like he, she, woke? Wait, you have to, my pronouns are this now? Is that going to become an issue? It's like resumes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't believe it's going to become an issue more than it's going to become something we have to be more conscious of.
Right.
Constantly conscious of. So, we just have to be aware that there are different elements today than there was even 10 years ago in working with people and what people need. COVID broke out a ton of introspective thought with people. And so a lot of people are looking at it saying, I realize now that I didn't realize until I was forced to with COVID, that I don't have very good balance in my life, and I'm not spending enough time with my family. So now you have people wanting to work from home or moving all over the place saying, why am I living here? This is not I thought I was stuck here. I have more choices. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of introspection, and we need to be aware of everyone's got different needs.
So with everybody having different needs,
let's
talk about working from home.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent? What do you feel?
Well, I'm going to say good because I own a virtual company that employs about 70 people. So, and they're all over the continent. However, there is two sides to every coin. So, there's still minus and positives from working home versus office, and there's lots of literature on it. Where we come from is that, again, being conscious that some people need more physical interaction, office, coming together. We still have regional parties. So, we'll fly to different regions and gather everybody because, again, this is how I feel through COVID. I believe COVID solidified our human need to connect.
Right.
I believe. And so after that, we said, okay, well, we need to have regional get-togethers. We have Zoom meetings and sessions, and even we just created a what we call open mic, and that is it's every second Friday we come on a Zoom meeting, and people can come and just ask questions or talk, or they can say, what does this look like for the business? Or they can challenge something. It's just completely open, and it's like gives everybody the freedom just to connect and talk.
And what about companies that are smaller than yours, okay, that they actually work remotely? So somebody's they're working from home.
Yeah.
How do you build a culture with that? And because I've seen a lot of people that they'll quit over a pen. Now, here's a pen. Right. You've just moved over here because you're at the next company, because you really don't care who your boss is. It's just, I'm just another, it's not even a number. I'm on the screen. It's like, who's going to pay me more?
Right.
Like, how do you build a culture with that?
Yeah. And so this is from experience now that we came to understand that we just have to engage more frequently. If you have a monthly meeting, departmental meeting, that should probably be bi-monthly or even weekly. Increase the frequency with meetings, connection points, having different, so we use, say, Slack, for example, and we have a bunch of different channels on Slack. We have a culture, core values channel where people can call each other out for core values. We have a happy hour, we call it, and it's just people, hey, this happened with my dog the other day. Someone was in a horse show, and so they were posting pictures on there, and people were congratulated. Like, it's just a whole bunch of channels to connect. And so we need those touch points and those connection points much more than we have in the past, especially if we're virtual.
So taking virtual, what about as an owner? Like, what's your responsibility? So you hire a team here, they're gonna be on Slack, they're doing exactly what's your responsibility to that?
Yeah, so we believe that.
Let's take the we out.
Yeah.
Do the I.
I'm talking about we as in terms of my wife and I, because we co-own the company. So when I say we, I'm talking about my wife and I.
Okay.
But what we do, or I do in the company, is we have to lead it.
Right.
We have to lead the process. And again, as the head of the company, if you will, we believe very heavily in model the way. So we have to guide. We're the example. We have to set the best example possible. Because if we don't set a good example, why should we expect anybody else? Right. Kind of like parenting kids, yeah?
Oh, totally.
Right,
Oh my gosh, totally.
Exactly.
And that's where it comes into parenting, and all of a sudden someone's going to quit, someone leaves, and it's just like, here we go again. We get knocked down. And all the businesses you own and where you're at, and then with Vea right now, like, it's incredible because you're remote and you're deep diving into virtual. Like, how does AI affect you?
Yeah, so we are very adamant on learning as much as we can about AI, not only from a possible risk perspective, because our virtual company is executive assistants and bookkeepers and managers. All three can be can have roles taken away because of AI. But all three, we know, can also be properly augmented with AI tools. So we've got to weigh out what's the risk, what can they stand to lose, the work they can stand to lose, versus how can we enhance their work to make them more valuable for the clients they're working with using AI. So we are delving quite deep into AI, and I understand you have a session coming up, a podcast episode coming up that's involved heavily around AI. I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see it.
And we found it because I'm in the construction industry, and AI and how important that is in our business, because and labor forces and what that comes into play. So it's been really interesting to see that whole transition. Now, are you guys scared of AI, or you want to embrace it?
Well, we're scared of the unknown, right? So we're scared of the unknown.
Is it Terminator? Or
is it Terminator? Skynet. But we said if we, keep your enemies closer. So is it an enemy? We want to embrace it so that we can stay ahead of it and understand, because, there may come a time where we have to pivot our business. It might be coming because, technology is advancing at a, ever highly accelerated rate, and we may have to pivot the business, and we may get into the point where we say we're actually selling AI.
Right.
As a service. What I mean?
Interesting.
So we're saying that's a possibility, but we got to be open.
Right. And how are you guys looking for new ideas? Like you just mentioned right now, selling AI. What makes you think and look outside the box? Like, what's that mindset that keeps an entrepreneur going?
Well, I'm glad you said mindset, because that's part of that growth mindset is always being aware of reality and what's going on and keeping your mind open to opportunity. And that's a big thing that entrepreneurs do, is they look for opportunities, right? That's kind of a common trait. And so, we have a large network through EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, that you and I know each other from, as well as the business community, having had several businesses. And so we're always looking for opportunities, and this new business came from that.
Right.
Someone mentioned something about virtual EAs, and we're like, that'll be great business. And that's what we created this from, someone's idea.
Right.
And if we keep our eyes open to that, we can always be looking. Now, there's a balance, because if we're always looking for opportunities, don't forget the bird in the hand. Don't forget what you actually are currently doing, your core business. So you got to balance with not always looking for the shiny object.
Yep. Squirrel.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're all AD.
Exactly. But just, keeping a balance between the two, but always keeping that open mind. My rule of thumb is, if someone says something, or I see some piece of information it's the same information from 3 different sources, I'm like, that's a pattern, needs to be paid attention to.
Right.
If it's someone says something, it's hearsay or it's opinion, and that's fine. But if I hear it from 3 different sources, now I'm recognizing a pattern and I want to pay attention to it.
So is that one of those things, if you see it in the paper, it's too late?
It could be.
Because at that point, it's more than 3.
You probably should have heard it before it hit that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the one thing about young entrepreneurs, and we look at these guys, what is their greatest pitfalls? Because you coach and you see all these young guys coming in and eager, what is the greatest mistake that a young entrepreneur does? It's kind of like walk before you run, whatever it is. What do you see as a coach, the first mistake they make as an entrepreneur?
Well, and I would tell you, I work with executive teams from small companies to billion-dollar companies. So all over the map and all ages. However, there is a single thing that keeps coming up with every single team, no matter how mature, and it's around role clarity. It's that they have their roles, but they're not clear. They don't have defined lines. They've often crisscrossed, because our roles do, right? And there's no boundaries with them, and they're not in writing. So everything needs to be in writing and agreed upon, so that everybody has a clear definition throughout the company of what everyone does.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that comes up every single time. The second thing that comes up is accountability. So often leaders will say, well, I have good accountability, but how do I make everybody else accountable? And the answer is you can't make people accountable. You can't give accountability. People take accountability.
Do we just fire them?
No, we don't, Kevin. We don't just fire them. Inside joke.
Yeah.
No, we want to give them the ability to take accountability. Right. So that is that, showing them a growth mindset, getting them engaged, giving them autonomy, those types of things will allow them to take accountability. And so we go through a whole process on that. And I write about it in the book because to me, it's a very important point, those two, right? Role clarity and accountability.
If there was one thing when you were younger, would you change anything today?
Oh my gosh. I've changed lots of things.
Really,
yeah. So business wise,
yes.
What would I change? I think it took me probably about 6, 7, 8 years of being in business before I really started to invest in myself and my own learning so I could be a better leader. So if I could sort of wind back the clock, I'd start investing immediately in developing my skills as a leader.
So would you actually say integrity as a leader and how important that is? Because there's leaders out there that have no integrity. They're there for the dollar, whatever their story is. And then who an individual is, like yourself, is about integrity. How important that is that? Because it's got to show, because you got to love yourself. Yeah. Do you be successful and truly love yourself? Because I've been around you for 25 years through your ups, through your downs, everything. And I've learned is going through life, it's all about the integrity we have to have and truly love ourselves. Because if we are not truly love ourselves to who we are today, how can we show customers, clients, our staff who we are? Like, we have to have so much integrity that we bleed it. We want to become this and we want to become great. And you've definitely been that guy that shows that integrity spot there.
Thank you.
So
I definitely believe that you don't have to have integrity to make money, unfortunately, right? We've seen a lot of people make a lot of money without integrity. So my belief isn't about making money. My belief is about, as you say, being true to myself. And myself is about helping others grow to whatever success looks like for them. I believe in that. And so when I make decisions, I need to stay true to that desire and that purpose. And if I do, I can sleep well at night. I can feel like I've had a good, successful life, and it's not revolved around money.
Awesome. I have to tell this story because I'm sitting here looking at you, and Nick, you wrote the book.
Yes.
And I remember going through in EO, and you would sit there and bring it to the meetings and say, okay, I'm writing the book, I'm putting it down, and we'd have yellow stickies everywhere and watching it develop, watching it become form and shape. And I remember going this, I said, Nick, come on, let's speed this up. And I remember years ago, life hack, I wrote a book, The Art of Spindle Stairs and Railings.
Yes.
Now, I remember writing that years ago, and I forgot to produce or publish it, and it was sitting there. And I remember telling you, said, Nick, let me show you how to write a book in 6 months. And you went, and we had a little bet, but I had that hidden away knowing that I'd already done half the legwork, and then I came in and I self-produced it. There, Nick, I just published a book, did it all the time, yet I'd had it already done. So I always have to laugh about that when we first did our first, here's the 2 books back side to side. Right, so I had to get a good kick out of that.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was my storytelling. So
very good.
But anyway, Nick, thank you very much for being on Shed Talk.
Thank you.
And everything like that. And all the best of luck and everything in the future that you're going to do.
Yeah, it was a real honor to be here, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now you know. Shed Talk.